December arrived with a biting wind, frosting Maplewood in ice and shadows. The streets were quiet, the snow crunching beneath every footstep, and the town seemed to hold its breath, waiting. Even the Wexler house, warm with the glow of lamps and the fireplace, carried a sense of urgency. Eli had been more distant over the past few days. He didn't talk much, and when he did, his words carried a tension that set my chest tight. I tried not to pry, telling myself he would open up when ready, but the unease in my gut refused to settle. One evening, as I walked up the snowy driveway to the Wexler house, I noticed fresh tire tracks in the driveway, tracks that weren't Eli's. My heart thumped in my chest. Inside, Eli was at the kitchen table, his hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, staring at the floor. "They were here today," he said quietly when he saw me. "People I thought I'd left behind. They found me." I froze. "Eli, I didn't want to tell you," he continued, voice tight, "because I don't want you to get hurt. But you need to know. I can't hide it anymore." I stepped closer, taking his hand. "You're not hiding it from me. Whatever comes, we'll face it together." He looked up at me, the weight of his past etched into every line of his face. "Emma, this isn't just gossip or old grudges. They're dangerous. And I've put you at risk just by being here." I felt a chill that wasn't from the snow outside. "I'm not leaving you, Eli. Not now. Not ever." That night, the storm outside mirrored the storm in my heart. Snow fell heavily, the wind howling like a warning. We sat together on the couch, wrapped in blankets, clinging to each other. The warmth of his body against mine was the only thing keeping the fear at bay. "I shouldn't have brought this into your life," Eli whispered, his voice barely audible over the wind. "You didn't bring it into my life," I said firmly. "You are my life, Eli. And I'm not letting go, no matter how hard it gets." For hours, we talked. Not just about his past, but about dreams, fears, the kind of lives we wanted if the world allowed it. He told me about mistakes he'd made, people he'd hurt, and places he'd run from. I didn't judge. I listened. And for the first time, I understood the depth of the man I had come to love. The next morning, Maplewood felt different. The snow had piled high, the sky gray and heavy, and the town seemed smaller, quieter, yet more threatening. At the diner, whispers followed us. A few patrons stared, and the gossip mongers from school didn't bother hiding their smirks. But Eli held my hand under the table, a silent promise that no matter what came, he was mine, and I was his. That evening, after clearing the snow from the Wexler driveway, we sat on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the trees. "I don't know what comes next," Eli admitted. "But I know I want you in it." I leaned against him, the warmth between us defying the winter chill. "Then we face it together. Whatever it is." He kissed me then, not gently this time, but with urgency, passion, and the kind of intensity that comes from knowing every second could be a gift or a risk. I kissed him back, wrapping my arms around him, feeling the snowstorm and Maplewood's whispers fade into nothing. That December, Maplewood tried to challenge us, to test our bond. But with every whisper, every stare, every shadow from Eli's past, I found my love for him growing stronger. The quiet edges of our small town were no longer places of safety or suffocation. They were the backdrop to something raw, real, and unbreakable, and I realized that sometimes love isn't about ease or comfort. It's about holding on when the world tries to tear you apart, and about finding warmth in the coldest storms. The first week of January arrived like a storm, cold and relentless. Maplewood was buried in snow, the streets slick and narrow, and the wind seemed to carry whispers from every corner of the town. I had never realized how small the town could feel until now, how it seemed to press down on everything that mattered. Eli and I had spent the past few weeks recovering from the tension of December, the confrontation with his past, the snowstorms, the whispers. But even in the Wexler house, where we had carved out our sanctuary, unease lingered. One evening, as I was preparing dinner, I heard a knock at the door. My heart stuttered. Eli went to answer it, and I followed, curiosity mingling with fear. Two men stood outside. I didn't recognize them, and even in the dim porch light, there was an unmistakable edge of danger in their stance. "Eli Wexler," one asked, voice rough. He nodded, stepping slightly in front of me. Who wants to know? We need to talk, the other said. It's about what you left behind. Eli's jaw tightened. He looked at me for a brief second, the silent question in his eyes clear. Go inside. I nodded, retreating to the warmth of the living room, my heart pounding. The confrontation outside lasted less than 10 minutes, but the tension bled into the house, leaving everything cold despite the fire. When Eli returned, his hands were clenched, his face pale. They won't leave me alone, he admitted quietly. And now I've dragged you into it too. I moved closer, touching his arm. You can't control the past, Eli. But we can face it. Together. He shook his head. Sometimes, facing it isn't enough. Sometimes, it comes for you anyway. I saw the fear in his eyes, the same fear that had haunted him in December. And I realized then that love wasn't just about warmth or comfort. It was about standing together in the face of storms, even when the outcome was uncertain. The days that followed were tense. Snow fell relentlessly, isolating Maplewood, and every stranger passing through the streets seemed like a potential threat. Eli and I kept close, sharing every moment, every meal, every quiet breath, as if the world outside might try to steal us apart. One night, after shoveling the driveway, we sat on the porch wrapped in blankets, the snow sparkling like tiny diamonds in the lamplight. I leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. I don't know how much longer I can do this, he admitted. The past, it's not done with me yet. And I don't want to lose you in the process. You won't, I whispered. I'm not leaving you, Eli. Not now. Not ever. He kissed me then, long and desperate, the kind of kiss that carried months of longing, fear, and love. I kissed him back with equal intensity, letting the storm outside mirror the storm within. By mid-January, Maplewood had begun to shift. The whispers and glances persisted, but there was also a quiet recognition. Eli wasn't just a shadow from the past. He was a man trying, fighting, and finding a place in this small town. And I was by his side, unwavering. We spent the snowy evenings together, talking, laughing, sometimes crying, but always holding each other close. The small-town quiet had changed, no longer a cage, but a canvas on which we were painting our own story, and in the midst of snow, whispers, and shadows, I realized something profound. Love wasn't about safety or simplicity. It was about courage. About holding on when the world tried to tear you apart, and with Eli, I knew I had that courage. I knew we had that courage. February arrived cold and brittle, but Maplewood felt different. The snow had started to melt, revealing patches of brown grass and muddy streets, a reminder that winter never lasted forever. And neither did the quiet tension that had gripped our lives. Eli and I spent hours at the Wexler house, finishing repairs, painting walls, and laughing in ways that made the long winter nights feel lighter. Yet, beneath the comfort, the shadow of his past lingered, a quiet reminder that the peace we'd built was fragile. One afternoon, as I was hanging curtains in the living room, Eli entered carrying a small box. What's that? I asked. He sat on the couch, placing it carefully between us. Something I've been holding on to, something I need to deal with. I looked at him, heart tightening. Do you need me to leave? No, he said firmly. I need you here. I need you to know I'm doing this for us. He opened the box to reveal a stack of letters, worn and folded, some with smudged ink. These are from people I hurt. From mistakes I made before coming here. I've avoided them, ignored them, but now I have to face them. And part of me wants to run. But I can't. Not anymore. I reached out, placing my hand over his. You don't have to face it alone, Eli. I'm here. Every step. He looked at me, eyes filled with gratitude and something deeper, vulnerability, he rarely showed. Thank you, Emma. I don't deserve you sometimes. You do, I said softly. And I'm not going anywhere. That night, snowflakes drifted lazily past the window as we sat by the fireplace. The warmth of the flames mirrored the warmth between us. Words weren't necessary. Our closeness, our touches, the way our hands fit together spoke volumes. I leaned against him, resting my head on his shoulder. He wrapped his arm around me, holding me like I was fragile and precious. I love you, I whispered. He pressed his lips to my hair. I love you too, Emma. More than I thought I ever could. It wasn't just affection, it was a promise, a commitment forged through months of fear, snowstorms, small-town whispers, and the weight of past mistakes. The next day brought confrontation. A man from Eli's past arrived in Maplewood, intent on resolving old debts and unfinished business. But this time, Eli was ready. He faced it head-on, with me by his side, unflinching. "You don't get to drag me down anymore," Eli said firmly, standing tall. "I've moved on, and I'm not afraid anymore. Not of you, not of the past." The man hesitated, seeing the determination in Eli's eyes, the unbreakable bond between him and me. Finally, he left, and Eli turned to me, exhaling in relief. "We did it," he said, a tired smile breaking through. "We did it together," I corrected, smiling back. That February evening, Maplewood felt lighter. The streets were still cold, the snow still lingering, but the shadows had lifted, at least for now. We walked hand in hand through the town square, the once suffocating whispers replaced with cautious acceptance. At the Wexler house, we celebrated in our own quiet way, cooking dinner together, laughing, and embracing the intimacy that had grown between us. Our love, tested by whispers, snowstorms, and shadows from the past, felt unshakable, and for the first time in months, I believed that Maplewood, with all its small-town quirks and quiet streets, could be a place where love wasn't just possible, it could thrive. March arrived with a subtle warmth that hinted at spring. Maplewood streets were lined with muddy patches, early buds on trees, and the faint scent of thawing earth. The small town had been quiet for weeks, but I felt the tension of the past months gradually lifting. Eli and I spent most of our days at the Wexler house, finishing the last touches on renovations, painting the porch railings, and clearing debris from the yard. Our routine was simple but comforting, a rhythm that grounded us after months of storms, snow, and whispers. One afternoon, as we were stacking firewood, Eli paused and looked at me. "Emma," he said, "I think it's finally over." I tilted my head, curious. "What do you mean?" "All of it, my past, the people trying to pull me back. They've gone. I've faced it. I've fought it. And I didn't lose you." I smiled, feeling the weight of relief settle over us. "I never doubted you." He reached for my hand, holding it tightly. "And I never doubted you. You stayed. You believed in me when no one else would." We stood there in the soft March sunlight, hands intertwined, hearts beating in sync, realizing that the storms we'd endured had only brought us closer. That evening, Maplewood's whispers had softened. Mrs. Parker at the diner offered a small, approving nod. Lila smiled genuinely, no hint of worry in her eyes. Even the Dawson twins from school gave subtle acknowledgement that Eli belonged here now. For the first time, it felt like the town was no longer an obstacle, but a backdrop for something real, something enduring. Back at the Wexler house, we celebrated quietly. Dinner together, laughter spilling across the table, and finally, moments alone by the fire. I leaned against Eli, feeling the warmth of his body and the strength of his presence. "I've never felt this. Complete," I whispered. He kissed my forehead, softly, tenderly. "Neither have I. You made me believe that love could survive even the hardest storms." The night stretched around us, intimate and unbroken. We held each other close, letting the comfort, trust, and passion of our love speak louder than any words could. Over the next few weeks, life in Maplewood settled into a new rhythm. The small town that once whispered and stared now accepted our bond. Eli and I continued to work on the Wexler house, to walk through the quiet streets hand in hand, and to dream together of a future that was no longer shadowed by fear. Spring approached, and with it, the promise of growth. I realized that Maplewood, once suffocating, had become home, not because the town had changed, but because we had grown stronger within it, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that whatever storms came next, we would face them together, unbroken. April arrived in Maplewood with a gentle warmth, soft sunlight spilling over the streets, and the faint scent of blooming flowers. The snow was gone, replaced by patches of green, early buds on trees, and a quiet optimism that seemed to touch everything. Eli and I spent most of our days at the Wexler house, finishing small details and tending the garden. Every corner of the house now reflected us, our laughter, our work, and our love. I realized, as I planted tulips along the front porch, that this house had become a symbol of more than just renovation. It was the home we had built together, piece by piece. One afternoon, I sat on the porch steps, sketchbook in hand, drawing the garden in delicate lines. Eli joined me, sitting close, his shoulder brushing mine. "You're quiet," he said softly. "I'm thinking," I admitted. "About life, about Maplewood, about us." He turned to look at me, eyes attentive. And I think I've grown. I used to think I needed to leave to find myself. But maybe I can find myself here with you." He smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes. "That's the first time I've heard you say that. I was worried you'd always want to go." "I thought I did," I confessed. "But love changes things. It gives you roots and wings. And with you, I feel like I can have both." That evening, we walked through Maplewood's quiet streets, hand in hand, past the diner, past the bookstore, past the small park where autumn leaves had once crunched underfoot. The town no longer felt like a cage. It felt alive, welcoming, full of possibilities. We stopped at the small bridge over the creek, where the water glistened in the soft light of the setting sun. Eli took my hands in his. "Emma, you've changed my life," he said quietly. "Not just by staying, but by believing. By loving me, even when the past tried to pull us apart." "I love you, Eli," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "I've never loved anyone like this before." He kissed me then, deep and tender, a kiss that spoke of months of trust, passion, and unwavering commitment. I kissed him back, letting the warmth of our love dissolve any remaining doubts or fears. Over the next few weeks, life in Maplewood settled into a gentle rhythm. Friends and neighbors accepted us, the town no longer whispering but acknowledging our love. Lila smiled openly, proud and relieved. Even Mrs. Parker at the diner offered a kind word and a nod of approval. Eli and I continued to work on the Wexler house, tending the garden, painting rooms, and simply being together. The storms of the past, the whispers, the snow, the shadows felt distant, replaced by the calm certainty of our bond. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Eli and I sat on the porch, watching the town come alive with the soft glow of lights. "I used to think life was about escaping," I said softly. "But now I know life is about choosing where to stay and who to stay with." Eli pulled me close, resting his forehead against mine. "And we chose each other. Always." I smiled, feeling the warmth of his embrace and the quiet joy of belonging. Maplewood, once small and confining, had become the place where our love could grow, strong, enduring, unshakable, and I knew, with absolute certainty, that no matter what storms came next, we would face them together, our roots intertwined. Our wings ready to soar. May arrived in Maplewood with soft sunlight, warm breezes, and the faint scent of blooming flowers. The town had fully awakened from winter, and with it came a sense of peace I hadn't felt in months. Eli and I spent the days finishing the last projects at the Wexler house. The garden bloomed with tulips, daffodils, and roses we had planted together. Each corner of the house reflected our laughter, our work, and our love, a tangible reminder of everything we had endured to get here. One afternoon, as we sat on the porch, sipping iced tea and watching the sun cast long golden shadows across the yard, Eli took my hand. "Emma," he said, voice soft but steady, "I think the past is finally behind me. No more shadows chasing us, no more whispers trying to break us." I smiled, feeling the tension of the past months dissolve. "It's behind us because we faced it together. That's the only way it could end." He leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from my face. "I can't imagine life without you. You've become my home, Emma." Tears pricked my eyes, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming love and gratitude I felt. "And you've become mine," I whispered. That evening, Maplewood felt alive. The streets buzzed with the quiet rhythms of a small town, Children laughing in the park, neighbors chatting on porches, and the gentle hum of life resuming its pace. We walked hand in hand through the town square, past the diner, past the bookstore, past the familiar corners that had once held fear and doubt. This town used to feel so small, I said, glancing at Eli. But now it feels like it belongs to us. He smiled, squeezing my hand. Because we belong to each other. That's all that matters. Back at the Wexler house, we celebrated in our own quiet way. Dinner together, laughter spilling across the table, and finally, moments alone by the fireplace. We held each other close, feeling the warmth of love that had survived storms, whispers, and shadows. I never thought love could feel like this, I admitted, resting my head on his shoulder. Eli kissed my temple. It's because we fought for it. We believed in it. And now, it's ours, unbreakable. The night stretched around us, intimate, peaceful, and full of promise. I knew, without a doubt, that whatever the future held, we would face it together, stronger, braver, and deeply in love. By late May, Maplewood fully accepted us. Friends and neighbors smiled and nodded as we walked through town. No longer whispers, no longer stares, just quiet recognition that our love was real and enduring. Eli and I continued to work on the Wexler house, tend the garden, and dream together. The storms of the past, the snow, the threats, the whispers, were finally behind us, leaving only the calm certainty of love. And as I sat on the porch one evening, watching the sun set over the town that had once felt confining, I realized that home wasn't a place. It was a person. And I had found mine. With Eli, I had roots to grow, wings to fly, and a love that would endure every season, every storm, every quiet moment in Maplewood. Summer arrived in Maplewood slowly, stretching the days with golden sunlight and warm evenings. The town was alive with the hum of life, children playing in yards, neighbors tending gardens, and the soft laughter of familiar friends drifting down quiet streets. It felt alive, welcoming, and steady. Eli and I had grown into a rhythm that was entirely our own. The Wexler house was complete, every corner infused with memories of the months we had shared, the renovations, the snowstorms, the whispered fears, and the quiet triumphs. The garden we had planted bloomed abundantly, tulips, roses, and daffodils swaying gently in the summer breeze. One evening, we sat on the porch, feet dangling over the edge, sipping lemonade and watching the sun dip behind the trees. You know, Eli said. Breaking the comfortable silence, I never imagined a place like Maplewood could feel so, like home. I smiled, resting my head against his shoulder. It's not the town, Eli. It's us. We made it home. He kissed the top of my head, soft and tender. We've been through so much, and yet here we are. Together. Yes, I whispered, and nothing's going to change that. Over the weeks that followed, life settled into a peaceful rhythm. We spent mornings at the bookstore, afternoons tending the garden or exploring quiet corners of town, and evenings wrapped in each other's arms, savoring the intimacy that had grown from months of trust and love. The town, once a place of whispers and judgment, had become a witness to our bond. Neighbors greeted us warmly, friends smiled without hesitation, and Maplewood no longer felt small or suffocating. It felt safe, welcoming, and full of possibility. One late afternoon, as the sun painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Eli and I walked along the creek near the edge of town. The water sparkled, reflecting the summer light, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of blooming flowers. Emma, he said, stopping and turning to me, these months, they've changed everything. You've changed everything. I never thought I could be this happy, this alive. I took his hands, feeling the warmth and certainty in his grip. We did this together, Eli. Every storm, every shadow, we faced it all. And here we are, stronger than ever. He smiled, pulling me close. Here's to the future. To us. To us, I echoed, pressing my lips to his. The summer months passed with laughter, quiet joy, and simple pleasures. Maplewood had become more than a small town. It was the backdrop of our love story, a witness to our growth, and the place where we had built a life together. One evening, as fireflies danced in the warm air and the sun dipped below the horizon, I realized something profound. Home wasn't a place, and love wasn't just a feeling. Home was him. Love was us. And together, we could face anything. With Eli, I had found roots that anchored me and wings that let me soar. We had faced storms, whispers, snow, and shadows, and we had come through unbroken, stronger, and more in love than ever. And as we sat on the porch, hands intertwined, hearts beating together, I knew this was only the beginning. Maplewood was our home, our sanctuary, our world, and with Eli by my side, forever was ours. It was late July, and Maplewood glowed under the golden sun, fields stretching wide and the creek sparkling in the summer light. The town felt alive, at peace, almost idyllic. I sat on the porch of the Wexler house, sketching the garden we had nurtured together, feeling a quiet contentment. Eli came out carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. "Here," he said, handing me one. "To us. To everything we've survived." I smiled, clinking my glass gently against his. "To us." We drank, and for a moment, the world felt simple, unbroken, perfect. That night, as the fireflies danced in the yard, Eli took my hand. "Emma, I've been offered a chance, a job in another city. A big opportunity. They want me to move immediately." I froze, my heart skipping. "Move? What? Why didn't you tell me before?" "I just got the news," he said softly, eyes full of conflict. "I didn't want to ruin tonight, this moment. But I can't ignore it. It's everything I've worked toward. And," he paused, voice trembling, "I don't want to leave you behind." I looked at him, the weight of his words pressing down. Maplewood had been our sanctuary, our refuge, the place where we had faced every storm together. And now, suddenly, everything we built felt fragile. "Eli," I whispered, trying to steady my voice, "I can't imagine life without you. But what if this is your chance? Your future?" He pulled me close, pressing his forehead to mine. "I don't know. I want us, Emma. I want Maplewood. But I also want to see what I'm capable of." The truth hung between us like a fragile thread. For the first time in months, I didn't know what the right choice was. Days passed with tension, bittersweet conversations, and long walks through Maplewood. The town that had once confined us now watched silently as we weighed the possibility of separation against the life we had built together. Finally, on the edge of the creek where sunlight shimmered on the water, Eli turned to me. "Emma, I've made a decision," he said, voice steady but tender. "I'm going. But not without you. We'll take this next step together, wherever it leads." Tears filled my eyes, a mixture of fear and hope. "Together," I whispered. "Together," he confirmed. "Maplewood will always be home, but our home isn't just here, it's wherever we choose to be. And I choose you. Always." That night, under a sky full of stars, we packed a single bag each, locking the Wexler house for the last time. The town seemed to hold its breath as we drove away, leaving the streets we had walked hand in hand, the whispers and shadows behind us.as Maplewood disappeared in the rearview mirror. I realized that life wasn't about staying safe, or avoiding storms, or clinging to the known. Life was about taking risks, embracing the unknown, and trusting love to carry you forward. And with Eli by my side, I felt ready. Ready for a new city, new challenges, and a future unbound by the quiet streets of Maplewood. The town had given us roots, yes, but it was love that gave us wings, and as the horizon stretched before us, bright and uncertain, I knew one thing with absolute clarity: together, we could face anything.